Weekend. Okay, on to the first program of the day, and indeed our first subject. Let's look at the bombing gone wrong. Speaking about the recent mistaken drone bombing in Kaduna State, and after investigations by the Army has put 2 officers on a court-martial proceeding. And that, as you know, is the military's version of a criminal court. The much that has been said is that it was a mistake and that it was wrong, and that the Army is going this way seems to mean that they suspect at least criminal culpability. Okay, our guest to help us understand this, former military officer, former deputy head of security at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa, and adjunct professor George C. Marshall, European Center for Security Studies in Germany, and private security consultant nowadays, private security and defense consultant trainer, Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired. A fine morning to you, Group Captain.
Good morning, Mr. Irori. Good morning, viewers.
Indeed. Our pleasure to be here. Let me get your general comments on the court-martial, because we all know what happened. It was a tragedy. It was tragic. Armless, civilians were the casualty of this mistake, because it has been called as much by the Army itself. But they have now put 2 officers on trial. What can you tell us about this? Because the Army itself has been quite tight-lipped about it, beyond the fact that there is a court-martial, and that because it is before a competent court, the spokespeople don't want to say much more about it.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, first to say my understanding of the statement from the defense spokesman, one is that the military very courageously, I must say, has come out to accept that the bombing was a mistake. And in that mistake, they found that some personnel maybe have been found wanting. Having said that, first, as a former military officer myself, this incident reminds me and reminds all other people still in uniform of the hazards of the job. The hazard of the military man is that he goes to defend other citizens, sometimes even putting his life at risk. But at the same time, when he is found not to have used the instrument of violence in a way that training or military professionalism demands, unfortunately, again, despite the yeoman's work that he is doing, the system will have to meet out some sections. So on that aspect, as a professional, it's like a doctor who has done 100 operations. One day, if he's unlucky, he might go and put too much anesthesia on a patient, and the patient will die, and then they will take him to court. It happens. Every profession has its own risk. This is the risk. So I sympathize with the personnel who are going to be tried. I said who are going to be tried because in the statement, I am not aware that the court-martial has started. I think what the man said is the intention of the military after their due investigation to do this court-martial, because probably because of their finding, when an incident happens in the military, they do what is board of inquiry initially.
Indeed.
And that board of inquiry will find whether the person being suspected, as of that time, there is no accused. It is just an investigation. And what the board of inquiry in the military does is to find out that thing that happened. Did it really happen? If the answer is in the affirmative, then now they look for who to blame. And in apportioning blame, because I just want to slightly correct, I have something about criminal culpability. Not really criminal culpability. What the military board of inquiry does is to bring out 3 kinds of responsibilities. First, it will find out whether the person will culpably negligent. Culpable negligence. Why is culpable negligence? That is, the person has been trained, has been given the correct equipment, has been given all the necessary to carry out a task, and he negligently didn't carry out a task. That is the worst finding that a board of inquiry can find. The second next finding is excusable negligence. Excusable negligence is where a personnel has been ordered to carry out a task, but the system itself has not given him enough training or the appropriate equipment, and he made a mistake. That's excusable negligence. And the military also recognizes a third level of involvement, which is an act of God. An act of God is that in the incident, it is found the person is well trained, he's given all the equipment, he has applied the training that he has received, but despite something out of his control, something happened. So I think it's based on that, then the military will say we are moving up to a court martial. We do not know under these three what these people will face. But like I said, I sympathize with them, but I must commend the moral courage of the military to accept that. With due respect, by the work that I do, I follow every incident of collateral damage. Because I am an expert, I'm also a trainer on rules of engagement on collateral damage and so on and so forth. I owe it a duty, I trace all of them. It is very rare. In most cases, what the military does, with even police, collateral damage with police, is that we follow the rules of engagement, or sometimes even insist that, in fact, the one in Nasarawa, which is unfortunate, even the governor came out to say that it was an unknown drone. Saying it's an unknown drone is not fair to the people that were killed. So acknowledging is what is always recommended. Acknowledgement, is a human thing to do. This is a Nigerian military, which through whether mistake or negligence killed a Nigerian citizen who is also the taxpayer. So the least that the security force can do is to acknowledge, yes, Mr. A or Malam A or Chief so was a living person living in this particular area on this particular day. We did an operation and we mistook him and he lost his life, or he lost his shop, or he lost his leg. Acknowledgement is a very human thing. But like I said, in the past, that's why I congratulate the current crop of leadership, because I am sure, I don't have to be there, that so many discussions have gone, should we accept, should we not accept? But at long last, moral courage prevailed, and they came out to say, not like we say in the past, that we are responsible, and they acknowledge. So the other steps to be done, when this happened, you acknowledge, they have done investigation, they have shared part of the result of the investigation. They will, again from that, we expect there will be remedial actions. Because when a mistake is concerned, three things must have happened. Either it is a mistake in procedure, a lack of training, or inappropriate, so many things. The investigation will find out, and then what do you do so that it doesn't happen? And then this final one, the court martial, which to me is not the most important. It's not the most important. The purpose of an investigation, first and foremost, is to ensure it does not happen. But along the way, unfortunately, my colleagues may face sanction. The sanction may be severe, may be mild. And then finally, compensation. Compensation for those people who were wronged. Those that are dead, you look for the next of kin or people that are involved and pay compensation to them. This is strictly how a collateral damage incident is handled. This is the procedure that is recommended all over the world. Militaries do it. Our own military is also joining this something. Because incidentally, it happened the same week that this spokesman said the United States military released a result of a collateral damage incident in which only one person was killed. It happened in I think 2 years back. The report was just released just about the same time we had our own. So what does that show you? That is the global best practice. And we hope, going forward, first, we hope there won't be collateral damages. But nobody can assure you that in a military environment you will not have collateral damage. It happens to the best armed forces. It happens to the rest of the armed forces. It will happen. But how you handle it is the issue. Leveling up with the civilians, what it does is that it improves civil-military relations. Because the people will feel, in fact, I've had the interview with some of the villagers in Tudumbiri. It was in Hausa, in BBC. In fact, some of them were surprised that even the military accepted, and it gave them confidence. What does that do? It improves civil-military relations from the people and the military personnel.
Now, this must be very, very important to the army because, usually armed forces are highly interested in maintaining a cordial relationship with civilians, especially when in relative peace times, you know what I mean. And this thing that happened in the northwestern Tudumbiri, it's been described as that event. The army has spoken about, well, the spokesman, Edward Buba, Director of Defense Media Operations, Edward Buba, has said that painstaking investigations have been conducted. And after those painstaking investigations, this was because it was an event of monumental proportions. After all, up to 85, in the region of 85 Nigerians, unarmed, not in any kind of a war situation, are reported to have lost their lives as a result. Now that the army has now determined or decided, following its painstaking investigation, that soldiers, men in uniform, shall face a court-martial, it seems to me that the army is going to, quote-unquote, err on the side of caution, not going to arrive at any judgments itself that, oh, this could happen. No, it's not that. It's that clearly there were human beings at the end of the operational line that led in this calamity. And by the way, you could clear this up. This wasn't as a result of Nigerian Air Force planes, overflying the area, was it? The drone attack, well, attack it is, but it wasn't meant to be an attack. Those people died of friendly fire. This drone attack, does that suggest human beings remotely positioned, controlling those implements of war, and theoretically at least, until it is established beyond any shadow of doubt, could have, made a mistake? I'm glad that you referred to the different kind of scenarios, culpable, negligence, and all of those other ones. Is this beginning to lead in that direction, that it is wanted that a court-martial shall determine if there was any human input into this that was not entirely, completely professional?
Yes, exactly. Like I pointed out, the board of inquiry, that the inquiry or the investigation is the board of inquiry, still the same thing, must have found that any of these three things have happened. Either it is a culpable negligence, whether excusable negligence, whether it is an act of God. It is based on that the military can proceed to call for a court-martial. So like I said, of course, the level of any sanction that will be meted will depend whether it is at the higher end or at the lower end of culpability. Like I explained, you can see even the spokesman, he is reticent because yes, definitely as a military man himself, he knows it could be him also facing that trial. So there is that sympathy. But at the same time, there is also the need to show that the people that were killed, they also matter, and that the military wants to be seen as a military that behaves very professionally. So it is a very delicate balance act, but I think the military got their call right.
At this stage, let's play the report that we put out earlier on this particular story. And then we'll come back to our conversation.
Survivors of the drone strike that killed scores of rural dwellers in Tudumbiri, Kaduna State can now find closure as the military authorities admit that its troops got it all wrong. Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, says investigations into the incident has been concluded.
The military has conducted a painstaking investigation into the Tudumbiri incident that occurred in Kaduna State and has initiated disciplinary action against those that we found culpable. Accordingly, the affected personnel are to face a court-martial for acts of omission or commission with respect to the Tudumbiri incident.
The drone strike occurred as the villagers were celebrating a religious festival on the 3rd of December last year.
The incident was a mistake, and the victims of the strike were mistaken for terrorists.
General Buba also explains ongoing operations against terrorists in the north central of the country and gives reasons for the withdrawal of troops at Forward Operating Base Alawa in Niger State.
Troops encountered improvised explosive devices, and this was at Maganda Junction. And at that event, 2 soldiers were killed while 5 others were wounded in action. Now, based on these occurrences, there was a quick need to change tactics in order to maintain the tactical advantage and also in order to have better operational effectiveness. Accordingly, troops in forward operational base Alawa were tactically withdrawn to nearby forward operational base Pandogari.
Despite the withdrawal, troops still launch and sustain onslaught on identified targets. The military authorities say troops will sustain the offensive until its mandate of stamping out terrorism in the country is achieved. Sifon Asian, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, so then, Group Captain, as you were saying, this is being taken very, very seriously. And let me go back to the question of, well, first of all, I just recall what you said at the top, that you commend the armed forces for taking this route, for the boldness, the courage in standing up and saying, as a matter of fact, they've gone as far as even saying that it was wrong. So, I mean, that much is determined from the very beginning. That is the headline, that the military, the Nigerian military, did something wrong. The next step is what you have helped us to outline, whether culpability exists. Now, let me go into the difference between, in days of yore, when there would be an overflying aircraft, a bomber, a striker, or whatever it is that it is professionally called, aircraft, that has direct line of sight with the target, and this particular instance, you saw in that report, we saw in that report a device that, has to be a drone. As we all know, a drone is monitored remotely. So the person could have been, quite far away from the actual, scene of the incident. How these are modern ways of combat and warfare, and these are probably different from things that happened in your day, maybe about 20, 30 years ago in the military and having these kind of operations. Is it a much more hazardous and a much more training-intensive profession now than it used to be? That's the drone I was talking about.
Yes. With respect, while the drone technology cannot be said to be any technology globally, for our security forces, it is a relatively new introduction into their armory. It is for that reason that extreme care must be said to develop rules of engagement, to develop procedures, to do all the adequate training. I do not want to preempt what the trial, it will not be fair to the people that will be tried, but here I'm talking generally. When you have any equipment, it means you have to bring new, you have to develop new tactics, new training requirements, and all that and so forth. Drone, as opposed to a fixed-wing aircraft, whether helicopter, has certain advantages, but also disadvantages. The advantages that a drone has, first, is to save life. Like we call it pilotless, there is no pilot. So the worst that can happen is that the drone is shot down. That being the case, the most valuable item is the human life. So the human life is not there. The second advantage that drone has is that it is supposed to be more accurate. What do I mean more accurate? If you give it coordinates, longitude this, latitude this, I want you to hit it, it will hit it. But I say a big but confirming that latitude and the longitude you gave him is the correct one, is where the enemy is not the work of the drone, it's the work of the human being. So if you give him latitude and longitude, where instead of bandits you have farmers, he's going to hit farmers. If you give him longitude and latitude where actually there are bandits, he's going to hit bandits. So that is the second advantage. It's more accurate than a pilot, controlled aircraft. The third advantage that drone has is what is called loiter or endurance. I don't want to speculate, but it is in our business. I know the drone that the army has is the Turkish Bayraktar drone. That one, for example, can loiter in the sky for 27 hours. I don't think you have any aircraft that can stay afloat 27 hours. So the drone gives you these advantages, but at the same time, the advantages also come with disadvantages. Because there is no man inside that drone who will say this is risky or the situation is changing. Once a drone is programmed by the controller on the ground, it may not be able to detect any changes in the situation. Whereas maybe a pilot flying very low might be able to change his mind or see some changes from what he's done. That is one disadvantage of drone. Secondly, drones, even in the armed forces that are advanced, they normally use it for what they call precision targeting, like we saw when Osama bin Laden was taken. You know, use it for precision targeting as opposed to area targeting. A drone is more effective or more useful for a target. I mean, an identified target rather than destroying an area. Destroying an area, even with the Americans in Afghanistan, in Iraq, they have problems of collateral damage. In fact, experts say there is almost a 30-something% chance that when you use a drone for an area attack, you are going to have collateral damage. So these are the advantages. So the point is that while drone is another advancement in the capacity that our armed forces has, it is good while using it, you understand both the advantages and the disadvantages. A third aspect is that the drone itself, like the fixed aircraft, it carries different kind of munitions, different kind of weapons. Sometimes it may be a bomb.
Could I come back to you?
It may be a missile.
I beg your pardon.
Yes.
Group Captain, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Could I come back to you? Because we've had Professor Edmund from Enugu standing by for quite a while now. I'll come back to you. Good morning, Professor Edmund, and thank you for holding on.
Yeah, Mr. Sorry. Yes, are you with me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Unfortunately, you've kept me for long.
I'm so sorry, Professor, but because the group captain was explaining something technical, I didn't want to interrupt him out of turn.
That's by the way.
Yes.
No, it's okay. That's by the way. That's by the way anyway.
Please.
First of all, let me commend the military hierarchy for at least admitting that there was an error. I'm not a military man, neither am I a military expert, but as a civilian, in war or in wars, there are bound to be collateral damages. It's inevitable. Where I am against the military hierarchy is after admitting their mistake, went ahead to recommend court-martialing of those military boys. Let's say two wrongs cannot make a right. The damage has been done. It's a way. The military should not go back to the drawing board to forestall such a reoccurrence. Because by court-martialing, which might lead to either dismissal or death, as the case may be, you are thereby demoralizing other armed forces. You are demoralizing them in fighting this unconventional war. Because the war we are fighting in Nigeria is unconventional. It's not a conventional war. So we must have to be very careful in this use of court-martialing in correcting a mistake that had already been done.
Okay.
Because if you court-martial those boys, somebody else gave them that order. You don't just court-martial those two people. What about the people that gave them the order? So this will be a chain reaction that inevitably will not augur well for the armed forces.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much, Professor Edmund, for calling in. Group Captain, among other things, the professor brought up a matter that you could quickly clear. Do all court-martials lead to either dismissal or death?
Thank you very much. I thank Professor Edmund for his concerns. It is a very concerning issue for anybody who has served in uniform, because like I said, it's the hazard of the job. With regarding court-martial, the Armed Forces Act has provided different scales on punishment, and as of now, we cannot, conclude what punishment the court-martial is going. And when we say court-martial, it's like even the civil court. That is to say, these people are still suspects or accused. They are not yet found guilty. It is even possible after the court-martial, they are not found guilty. The scale of punishment that will be given will be something, you know, the Armed Forces Act has scales of punishment ranging from a few years in detention up to and including death sentence. But I do not think we are looking at a case here that will go to the, to the jet order. But then I just wanted the professor to understand that there are scales of punishment. It may not be as high as we are saying, and here we may not even presume already that the court-martial is still possible. It is possible after a board of inquiry, a court-martial can exculpate somebody. And even after the court-martial, a court-martial is subject to appeal, and after the appeal is also subject to confirmation by the Armed Forces Board or the Army Council or whatever. There are other boards that will confirm this thing. So while we commiserate...
Is there incarceration within the scale between dismissal and death?
There is within the scale. I said, even including a few days detention in the military guard room, up to imprisonment, dismissal, it is scale. It is a scale from the minimum to the maximum. From the minimum to the maximum. But if my memory serves me right, the only place where you can be talking of death sentence is maybe in cases whether there is murder, real murder, there is an offense of murder in the armed forces, or treason. That is where you'll be having. But I think this is a professional mistake, if at all. It's a professional mistake. And yes.
Just before you go on, Group Captain, let me bring in Ada, who has also called in, lest I detain her for too long. Good morning, Ada. Go ahead, please. Ada, please go ahead now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry from just statistics. I'm happy you brought a guest that has done so much justice to the topic. Before now, when I hear court-martial, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay. Before now, when I used to hear of court-martial, and I'm sure most Nigerians think that way. Maybe that was why the professor who spoke first was talking like that. It doesn't really mean it's a death sentence. There are still rooms, for whatever. And we shouldn't shy away from court-martialing anybody. Even if a mistake, as he explained, if it's an excusable one, the punishment will be, less with the mind. All I want is that let's be fair hearing. But all I want to say here is that I thank God that they commend the military for even acknowledging, that it's a mistake. That is, it's even excluding ban in the first instance. So let them try and make sure that they give those two soldiers a fair hearing. And then so we won't have that, just like your guest mentioned about the June, it's new to us, kind of. Maybe they haven't been well trained on how to use it, because in America, I know they make use of June, but their mistakes are not one too many, because they're already, they are used to it.
Okay.
So we should give that opportunity as well.
Indeed.
Thank
you very much, Ada, for calling in. So, Group Captain, there are a ton of questions and people want to call in. We'll take a break now, but we'll come back, and I'll also engage you a bit on an expression that you have used repeatedly here, collateral damage. Whereas we don't want to prejudge or involve ourselves in the case, this definition of collateral damage, we'll look at that when we come back. Stay with us, please.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions on their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
Every weekday on Business Nigeria, we uncover the secrets of the financial world,
breaking down intricate economic and financial matters.
We analyze the stock market, shares, bonds, and the thrilling world of cryptocurrencies.
We unveil and analyze complex policies of the CBN and other government parastatals as they affect your everyday life, keeping you a step ahead every time.
Okay, this is good. Facts matter. Our team dives deep to separate fact from popular opinion.
We simplify complex government policies as it impacts your everyday life, helping you navigate the ever-changing financial landscape.
Watch Business Nigeria every weekday at 2 p.m. only on TVC News. First with breaking news.
Welcome back. Our guest is Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired private security and defense consultant and trainer. Thank you for staying with us, Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu. Just before we go on, Mohammed in Zaria had called in, so I'll put him on now. Good morning to you, Mohammed in Zaria.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning,
sir. Good morning
sir.
to our special guest.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I am in support of what the Prof just said. Of course, well, the normal way of understanding court martialing is that it may lead to death sentence, which may encourage or rather discourage the coming Air Force guys or rather the military guys. So, and whatever we are doing, we should look at it that well. When a mistake is done, we should try to learn from it. Not that we should more or less like take it as do or die affairs or take it as if it is just sentimental. So this is military. They are there to guide, to safeguard life and property of this nation. So if there's a mistake, we should just look at it and then try to value it. Acceptance was made at the initial stage. So I think going forward, we should try to just make sure that the court martialing is not something that will discourage the upcoming officers. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much for calling in on that particular aspect, Mohammed in Zaria. But I think it is also as well that we understand that we are speaking as civilians and that military people, they sort of conform to a different order of service and rules of engagement, and the worldview is different. And that's why we really need an expert and an insider to help us understand it. Coming back to you, Group Captain, you've used the term collateral damage, and I wanted to try and understand that. Now, please correct where I'm not getting it quite spot on. If an objective is ascertained, for instance, take out target B, and that is done. But in taking out target B, there are some environments or some other damage that was not intended and that might not have been, we wouldn't have been able to take out target B without incurring that damage of unintended surroundings. Now, is that collateral damage, and is that different from making a complete mistake, misidentifying a target, and therefore opening fire on them? Misidentification of a target, is that collateral damage too?
Thank you very much. This question has given me the opportunity to cover some areas raised by Professor Edmund. I hope he's still listening, which I actually failed to address. He made a valid observation. First, he said in warfare, collateral damage is inevitable. That is true. And international humanitarian law, or law of war, or law of armed conflict recognizes that fact. Throughout the length and breadth of international law, there is nowhere where it says the commander can only attack where he is 100% sure that there will not be collateral damage. There is nowhere in international humanitarian law where it is say collateral damage is prohibited. However, throughout, in several formulations, you find the requirement that the attacker must take all feasible precautions to ensure that collateral damage is either prevented or minimized. These terms, I'm using exactly the words that appear in the Geneva Convention and the protocols. This is always this. So the formulators of these laws, they understand, for example, what they call the fog of war. That is, while there is need for haste, it is only it is not possible for a commander to have the whole picture before he said he will attack. So there will always be the element of the unknown. However, when it becomes inevitable, like the scenario you pointed, I like the scenario you pointed, you want to take out a target, the target is near another place, which is not a target, so, but you took out that target and it was that target. Now, what international humanitarian law expects you to do as commander presented with scenario is to bring the principle of proportionality. What is the target that I want to aim? I give an example, a group of 10 bandits. What is the possible incidental damage? The 10 bandits are inside a primary school with 50 children in school and teachers. You do a proportionality. Now the proportionality will tell you, for the price of 10 bandits, should I include 50 children and teachers? This is where it comes in. This is why the proportionality goes in. So incidental damage should not be disproportionate. However, as ugly or as unfeeling as it will sound, if you are after Shekau, and Shekau enters one bunker, and in that bunker already, unfortunately, there is one Megad, he's home with him, you have been looking for Shekau, you will be completely covered under international law because of the value of Shekau, because of the problem you have looking for Shekau, because of the value to the military advantage you will get by hitting Kulau. I mean, international humanitarian law can understand if you order a strike and you take out Shekau and you take out that farmer who is inside the place with him. So proportionality comes in. Collateral damage, again, I emphasize what I said, is inevitable. But inevitable, it means throughout, from the point of planning up to the last minute that you will drop your bomb, you are taking feasible precaution. There are many ways you can take feasible precaution. And where, at the end, you make a proportionality assessment that what I am going to gain as a military advantage is not up to what I am going to lose in terms of civilian innocent lives, then you cancel the attack.
Yes, but to re-emphasize the point, sir, a mistaken target, for instance, a misidentification of a target, how do you relate that to collateral damage?
Exactly. Misidentification of target is one, in fact, in many, I can agree with you, in many collateral damage incidents, misidentification of target is about 60%, wherever, not only in Nigeria. If you look at any, closely when you look, it's misidentification in target, whether it is Iran, whether it is this Sudumbiri, whether it is the one in Zamfara, whether it's misidentification of target. So for misidentification
it is still referred to as collateral damage. It is still referred to as collateral damage, not mistaken.
It's still collateral damage.
Okay.
It's still collateral damage. But at the same time, you are to use all. Okay, go ahead.
Let me bring on Mr. George, who has been waiting for a while. Good morning, Mr. George in Ikeja.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to the group captain.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, it would appear that there is something the military has not told us about the incident, because if the military is admitting that it was a mistake, it does not logically follow that you will have to punish somebody for something that is a mistake. But that is by the way. I have two questions for the group captain quickly. The first one is compensation. It's about 7 months now that this incident happened. Does he know whether the military has actually compensated the victims and their families? That's number one. Number two, since that incident, there has been a slowdown on the use of drones for bandits. Is that the reason why it was slowed down? That's my question.
All right.
Thank you.
Those are two questions. Thank you. It seemed like two, technical/professional questions. Okay, go ahead, Group Captain.
Thank you very much. Mistake. Punishment of mistake. Please, I want the caller to remember I took time to say that a board of inquiry will establish where there is culpable negligence. Culpable negligence is that the man has been trained, he has been given the correct equipment, yet he made a mistake. That is a mistake. For the military, that is something that can be punished. Then there is excusable negligence, where the man made a mistake because he didn't receive proper training or he didn't receive the proper equipment. In that case, the blame goes to the institution or rather the military itself for not giving him the training, but giving him a work which is beyond the kind of training or the equipment he has. So even as a mistake, with due respect, of course, I'm happy you understand that. That is, like I said, the hazard of the job of a military man. Unfortunately, for a mistake, there is this saying, pilot used to say that a doctor buries his mistakes, but a pilot will be buried with his own mistakes. Unfortunately for the military man, and it goes even with the police. If you remember, in America, we have this Black Lives Matter. The man is a law enforcement officer, but in applying the law, he killed somebody. He will pay. Just like what we had in Lagos, the policeman who, instead of stopping a vehicle with that female lawyer over Christmas, he shot her and she died. So these are issues. If you make a mistake, unfortunately, what the system will look at, did you make that mistake based on the system did not equip you to confront that kind of problem? If that is the case, then is the system itself that is at fault. If, on the other hand, the system has trained you, it has given you the correct equipment to carry, and you still made a mistake, now, unfortunately, the mistake will be on the side of this thing. But please, I want us to understand, this case, the court-martial has not started. So we should be careful in preempting. So please, I want people to understand, when I am talking in general, how collateral damage happens, how investigation happens in general, not necessarily the Tudunbiri, because that will not be fair to even the people that are going to be tried and the people that are going to conduct the trials.
Something else I think you could clear up, Group C, is the calls that we've been getting, the comments that we've been getting about a humanitarian aspect to all of this. As you were saying, without impinging anything. But the military operates by different rules. The military doesn't operate by usual societal rules. It's a regimented organization. It's a rule-bound organization. And so when people come and talk about these aspects that are perhaps, in place on the outside society, to what extent do those apply? Because I imagine that the military has a rule book that they will refer to for different aspects of their procedure. So now that people are bringing in things about, understanding, sympathy, and all of that, to what extent do the the military rule books, for lack of a better expression, allow all of these?
Okay. The military man is bound by two sets of rules. First, the rule that applies to him as a citizen. That is the rule that regulates behavior between citizens. As a citizen, he is bound by that rule. But then again, by joining the military, he is also bound by an additional law, which is the military law. Now, in situations where the question is internal to the military, how a military man behaves with his commander, how he behaves with his superiors, how he attends mess, how he attends courses, all this will be guided by military laws. However, as a member of also the larger society, where the situation is involving the military man and the civil populace, unfortunately, any of these two rules can apply, whether it is the civilian one or the military. So, like in this case, I completely understand by joining the military, you subsume yourself to military laws. But the people that are involved in these things, they are not military men. That is the victim. Okay. So in that case, you have to look at that aspect.
Bashoru is waiting to join us. So sorry to interrupt you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Bashoru.
Good morning, Uncle Fu.
Thank you very much, sir.
I appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you, sir.
Please, I just want to put in a quick contribution.
Sure.
One, perhaps we have some military, both serving and retired service officers at the hierarchy. One, our understanding is this: before you court-martial somebody, you must have identified through your internal administrative procedure that person acted intentionally. But from what we have been getting about this case, it was like a mistake. If it's a mistake, I don't expect the military to give you some of publicity that giving it now in terms of commercialing and not commercialing. If it's a similar fact that it was a mistake, like Mr. Joe said the other time, probably there are some things that is happening that we don't know. You only court martial when that person intentionally acted against the rules. But probably like Group Captain said, like when you want to go with a drone, you go with a command based on latitude where the drone should go. And in the course of wrong directions, and there's a mistake, I don't think you need to court martial anybody.
All right.
Those ones, to my own knowledge, from what I got from my friends who are retired military officers, supposed to be probably internal mechanism. When you want to court martial somebody, you must have confirmed through your internal procedure that that person acted intentionally to debate the ministry. Then I need to ask a question too from a Group Captain. If you give a command to the drone, along that moment, and you discover that your command is wrong, can the drone be withdrawn or stop from acting? Those are my questions. But initially, if it's a mistake, the type of publicity we are giving to this thing
Mr.
can
Bashir,
discourage the other officer in future.
Thank you very
to
much.
Act
Thank you
or
very
be
much, sir.
afraid
Thank
to
you very
act,
much for calling
even
in.
when commanded to act.
We appreciate you. Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Bashir, because everybody is interested in this particular subject matter. The Group Captain, we're fast running out of time, so I'm quite desperate myself. I don't want it to be on a noted way explain something important. Have we been watching too many war films when we imagine that the person who is controlling the drone has superiors that are seeing everything that is going on, and that without a final order to fire, you cannot fire? And I think it relates a bit to Mr. Basharu's comment in there, that where you see that things are mistaken, is there time to respond? We see that often in war films, where at the theater of war, there are some superiors in a control center, just like I have a master control myself in studio here, where they can see everything going on. And if only when those people say, fire, before you can fire. Could you explain that whole area? Too much Hollywood, Nollywood, or Hollywood, or any truth in that whatsoever?
Yes, sometimes there is too much of Hollywood, where people think that if it is a drone, everything is tick-tock, 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 tack. It's not like that. And again, I want people to consider drone. It's like your vehicle. You have a Mercedes, you have a Volkswagen Beetle, you have a Toyota. What do I mean? There are drones with different kinds of capabilities, depending on the sensors they have, depending on the cameras they have. But at the last end of it, there is the human person who will control. I told you something. If you give a drone area 4x4 by this latitude by latitude, it will go there and fire. But the duty of confirming what it is firing, is it actually enemy or friendly forces? It is the human element that will do that. And now, depending on the camera.
How would the human element know? Would that be the function of intelligence on the ground?
Exactly. That is the point, intelligence. I don't want to bring a specific case that is under investigation, but there are many ways that you can confirm intelligence. Mostly what other countries do, even for drone for air attack, that's what you call a forward air controller or a joint tactical air controller, who is somehow, at the risk of his life, will move near the target and will tell you 10 meters to my left, 10 meters to my right, they are still there. I have confirmed they are bandits. The point is, like I said, you cannot leave everything to the drone, no matter how sophisticated the drone is. The drone technology has not reached the stage where completely there is no human input. So in the long analysis, the guy is right to say, the person who said that, it is the job of the person to confirm if you have a different target, and then if it is not what you planned for, you cancel the attack. The other issue, please, I want to quickly address this, don't have time.
Captain, and I know you might be reluctant to answer this particular question, but could the mistake have been as a result of faulty intelligence? Theoretically.
Well, again, what I will answer in general. You mentioned the issue of misidentification, which I said sometimes carries about 40% of whatever collateral damage. Faulty intelligence. Faulty intelligence. I don't want to talk about this particular case. Faulty intelligence, whether it is RAN, whether it is the one in Benue, in my own investigation, it is faulty. What do I mean by faulty intelligence? Somebody says there are a group of bandits in Vandekia. To the military man, that is just information. It is not yet intelligence. You that collected that thing, you will start preparing to go and attack. But while you are doing that, there's what is called processing of information into intelligence. How you confirm that? In fact, even the person who brought the news, if you have his record, is it somebody who normally brings correct information? Fine. But still, what I am saying, it is duty bound on you who is going to attack, not just to accept that information as it is, but to process it and continue processing it until you overhead the target and you are sure what you are going to hit is what was said. So faulty intelligence is also a major factor in collateral damage. The one in Iran, because that one is already in the public domain. We have that it is bandits are in Iran. But it turned out that there were IDPs and it was an IDP camp. A little finding out maybe from the police or from the village head would have told you that we have a village near here. There's what the military does, map preparation. If I'm going to operate in Abuja, I will put on my map where hospitals are, where diplomatic houses are, where schools are, with all their directions and their differences. So when I'm going to attack, I have what can I call environmental awareness, where I am. What is to my right? What is to my left? What is in front of me? What is behind me? These are some of the things that you have to process the intelligence.
You know what, Group Captain? Well, Group Captain, I'm afraid we've run out of time, and it's a most interesting conversation. But then to emphasize what you have done, you've emphasized that a number of times on the program, that you're talking in generic terms, not necessarily about the incident that is going to be the subject of a court-martial, just helping us to understand how it works. I want to thank you very much, Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired, for coming on the program and helping us to understand how all these things work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, then. So that's our program. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folare. Bye-bye for now.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Tired of pans that scratch and stick? Or cookware that takes up valuable space in your kitchen and are of little to no use? Cooking used to be fun, but now it just feels like a chore. Introducing ShopX Gotham Hammered Copper Collection, the perfect cookware to upgrade your cooking experience. The Gotham Hammered Copper Collection features a super durable ultra non-stick surface. Eggs stick to other pans, but with the Hammered Copper Collection, they slide right out. Incredible! Plus, the Cool Touch solid cast handle makes it safe and easy to cook even the hottest dishes. It's oven safe up to 500 degrees, so bake this beautiful chicken stew pizza and serve it straight from the pan. Or this tasty, delicious cake that will have your whole family asking for more. Any recipe can be made in these pans, and then it wipes clean with ease, so cleanup is a breeze. Plus, use your hammered copper pan to make homemade pancakes that flips and slips right out. Or make mouth-watering jollof rice or even fluffy